Okay. So the frame is our invisible window into the world of the film, and mostly we do what we can to not remind the audience that it's there. So some filmmakers make the choice to remind people that the frame is there. This can be done in a variety of ways. For instance, kind of using tangents, bringing things too close to the box of the frame, kind of reminding people that they're hemmed in by the ratio of the frame. But for the most part, it's my business as a storyboarding teacher and the business of my students to kind of learn how to make the frame invisible, forget that it's there entirely. The frame is first and foremost a 2D object. Even when it is filming live action, it is always 2D. It is always being projected as 2D. We're not living amongst the characters as such. We're watching them through this window. And while that works for the most part, there are various techniques that we kind of use to try and go into the world, into the frame, as though it's a 3D world. There's multiple very specific ways to get us into the frame and get us into the world of the story using line, shape, color, movement, convergence, all manner of quite specific psychological and visual techniques. And a lot of these are discussed in the book, The Visual Story by Bruce Bloch, which I'm fully planning on doing a series on in future. We can treat the frame in two basic ways. One of those ways being just moving around the frame itself, moving around the camera itself, assuming that the frame is the camera. And the other way is by moving the characters in front of the frame or coming closer to the frame, so they can move further away from the frame or they can move closer to the frame. So we can treat the frame in two basic ways. We can move it, the frame itself, or we can move the subjects within it. The subjects can also move closer to each other. So the moment we kind of double this guy and put him to one side, suddenly we have character relationship. The characters also have a relationship with the frame itself, and all of this forms at bottom a basic story. It's quite remarkable how just by putting two characters on screen, a relationship is already formed. We don't know what the relationship is. We don't have a ton of information about it, but there is suddenly a story. If we start to put one character closer, and you see here, I'm not really putting a character closer, I'm really just scaling them up, which is that kind of fun thing your brain does when you're working in a 2D space, but trying to bring across 3D concepts. The moment I take a character and scale them up, suddenly a very different sort of story emerges, or a new kind of story emerges. Maybe if I take some shading to this character as well and sort of fill him in and route him to the front of the frame, as it were, suddenly things start to look a little bit like, is this character mysterious somehow? Can the person who the camera is on actually see them, but we can't? If I were to put a kind of a face cross on this character and make them look as though they're looking at us and this character looking at them, suddenly are they facing each other? Is this a showdown of sorts? All sorts of story ideas suggest themselves, and yet what have we actually done? We've just doubled the character, pulled one of them up slightly, and put a bit of shading on him. We haven't even drawn a grid in the scene yet. We don't know we don't have any context for the scene. These are completely blank mannequins, and yet something is emerging already, which is just kind of how powerful your brain is with creating story out of seemingly nothing, creating relationships out of seemingly nothing, because we're hardwired to expect relationships. We're hardwired to look for relationships. I do want to note one other thing with these two characters and how the frame is kind of used. I alluded to it earlier of how we can make people aware of the frame. One very obvious way to make people aware of the frame, which often we want to avoid, is by breaking the frame or not breaking the frame as well as we could be doing. So it must be noted here that characters do and can break frame as often as they like. Let me get rid of that little face cross there. So characters do break frame, but when you break frame, you kind of want to do it properly, as it were. If this character, for example, went and stood over here, but the top of their head and their elbow touched the side of the frame, suddenly we become aware of the box of the frame, as we've sort of said before. This character over here is fully breaking the frame. The elbow is standing out and the legs are standing out, but we want to kind of avoid certain areas. The top of the head could even stand out of frame. That's no problem at all. Sort of adds, if anything, it adds to the mystery of who they are. Like, imagine this character entering frame here, our guy turning around this way, and they see who it is before we see who it is. Creates some kind of dramatic tension. I'm just playing with Barbie dolls at this point. I'm making up stories as I go. But back to tangents. If this character were to come in and the top of their head touch the frame there, or if the character came in a little too high and only the shoulders touched, it would kind of create an uncomfortable we sort of noticed that the head was being severed straight off the neck there, which we wouldn't quite want. Or even if it kind of just, this would also feel a little uncomfortable for me over here. But we'd kind of have a bit of an odd tangent issue sort of happening with the hand just sort of touching the bottom of the frame there. So anything that like touches the side of the frame without looking naturalistic can kind of be done away with. Let's maybe do this with just an area or just an environment. So maybe putting a grid down. Grids can very easily cause tangent issues by, say, the grid being a little bit too close just to the bottom of the frame there and creating these uncomfortable parallels. It's not so bad the farther away it is, but other sort of architectural elements that might cause weird parallels might be things like windows, for example, where it's like the window again. If the window was a little bit closer in frame, it wouldn't be such an issue. That was the wrong button. It wouldn't be such an issue. Like if the window was just there, it wouldn't be that bad. But if the window was just a little too close to the top of frame over there, it would create an uncomfortable area happening there. So we'd want to keep it away from the top of frame there. Similarly, if we had, say, a plant or something that was just in frame over here, also a very bad plant, but say we just had a potted plant or something like that, where would we place it? We probably wouldn't place it where the fronds just touch the edge of frame there. We wouldn't want it to just touch at the edge of the bowl there either. We would want it to break frame entirely as well. So just a couple of little things there with where you would place a character, where you would put a character. Characters can also cause weird tangents within a frame also. So say I put this character right on the top of that grid line over there, which would be very uncomfortable because that means he's like flattening himself against the wall for some reason, and the elbow is touching the edge of the window. Also doesn't feel great. It doesn't make us feel good that way at all. Also, if the character is going to break frame over there, and you might think, oh, well, that's untidy, there's lines behind him now. No problem. We can just put the opacity all the way down. I personally don't mind seeing environment lines through the character like that. It looks pretty natural to me, but I'm also just used to reading framing that way. Of course, you can always throw some color behind the character there. This is called matting, by the way. In programs like Storyboard Pro, there's literally just a button you can press and it auto mats behind your character, whatever colors you want. I like to do color coding for the characters, or I'm at least teaching my students to like to do color coding right from the beginning, just because it helps a lot, especially when you are kind of doing a lot of mannequin characters like I do, and you're not doing any specific sort of visual thing like distinctive hair or distinctive clothes for them. Color coding can help tremendously for that. Keeps people from having to, one, worry about making too much of the character and overdrawing it, and two, it really helps to be able to track a character's movement through a world, even if it is roughly drawn. And that is the frame. Thanks for listening, and cheers.